Hello and welcome again to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. I am your host Dave, and with me always is the lovely Laura. And tonight, we're going to discuss something gruesome and something horrible. We may laugh, we may make some jokes, we use gallows humor here. It's not for the faint of heart, you may be offended. And if you're a delicate boy that plays the drums in an alt-rock band from Chicago, you will be offended, and you probably should listen to something else, something that decent folks listen to. I wouldn't know, because I'm not listening to it. And so, without further ado, let's proceed. Hey, welcome back to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. And, surprise, we're doing a murder again. We promised to get some awkward situations in the next couple of weeks. More about that at the end.
It turns out that murders are more interesting than awkward situations.
Yeah, we've really changed a lot of the format of the show. I think the first episode, maybe the first two, I put all those music cues in throughout it, and I plan on doing these really clever stories. No, you didn't.
I did like the stories at the end.
Yeah.
The personal stories. But you do kind of run out of stories of how you were almost murdered eventually.
Maybe. We do. I do. And I think just by kind of turning the show over to Laura to kind of run has made things go a little bit better, too.
No, let's edit all that out.
Oh, why?
Why are we turning it over to me?
That was like I was talking to you up there.
Oh, thanks.
Fine. Now you've ruined that. Just like you've ruined the evening. Anyways, if you're still listening, no. Tonight we're happy to do a show that I've been looking forward to doing.
Get ready to get angry.
It's all about the friend zone, and we're going to get into that. But it's about Elliot
Rodgers,
or Mr. Rogers, as I like to call him.
I'm sure he would have loved that.
Yeah, he would have. We would have been great friends.
Oh, jeez.
No, we wouldn't have.
We would have despised him because he was just a sniveling bitch of a human being. He was absolutely. You'll love to hate him. You'll love to hate him.
And I cannot wait to hear about him.
All right.
Laura's presenting. I'm going to be looking handsome and sitting back for a little bit. So, Laura, without further ado.
You know what I hate?
The word ado, which I say a lot.
That, yeah. But also, I don't hate that. I hate spree killers who write manifestos. I feel like I hate them more than serial killers. I know I hate all of them. But the guys who write a big manifesto to like justify killing a bunch of people are just so fucking full of themselves, and they must have just been such intolerable pieces of shit before they became mass murderers.
I feel like spree killers are the equivalent of like Dane Cook, the stand-up comedian, where I just look at him and
the other killers like look down on them. Like,
exactly, like
motherfucker. Well, here's one weird thing. Like, I feel like you take like one of your horrific serial killers that people are real fascinated by. For the most part, those guys really tried hard to evade capture. They weren't doing it for a crowd. Well, with a few exceptions of some real pieces of shit like BTK, who wrote a lot of letters for attention. But most of these guys were trying to fly under the radar. They were doing it for their own horrific, psychotic, compulsions. And they weren't doing it for an audience. And I feel like spree killers, it's always for an audience. And that just takes them just up an extra level of... There's like an extra layer of being a douchebag on top of being a murderous piece of shit.
Well, and for some reason, I'm now comparing all my favorite serial killers to my favorite stand-up comedians.
And when you say favorite, you don't mean you really
favorite in the sense that
they
cycle through my mind quite a bit. Yeah, I don't admire serial killers.
No, we're not.
I don't study them to learn from them and become a good one myself.
We're not going to get into that. We're not going to be those teenage girls who post pictures of dreamy serial killers and their Instagrams. None of that's going to go on.
No, I don't want to I don't want to be with one. I just want to be friends with one. And maybe they'd, that and that Zane guy, that singer. But anyways, I always look at Ted Bundy. I think he is the top of the line as far as facts and fun goes. Serial killer. He's the George Carlin of serial killing. He's my personal favorite.
He's everybody's personal favorite.
I think a lot of people like Jeffrey Dahmer. Some people like Ed Gein. I mean,
Jeffrey Dahmer Ed Gein was really the most sympathetic of all the, and he wasn't actually really a serial killer. I think he only really killed 2 people. He was more of a grave robber and an artist.
Well, old school people too, like Son of Sam, David Berkowitz.
He must have been a sniveling little piece of shit, don't you think? Though.
Well, I kind of want to do a Berkowitz episode. To be
Yeah.
perfectly
Okay.
honest.
Let's do that.
So okay, I'm gonna say adieu again. Okay, now I want au jus sauce too. What do you do? Here's some au jus, new rabis. Okay, so why don't you do your thing, and I'll drink some wine. No ice tonight, guys.
Yeah, good. No ice ever again.
And just
after that, listen to the playback and hear that ice crinkling. I know I'm not the only one that hated that sound.
Yeah.
All right. So, Elliot Rodgers, I'm sure most people remember this was not that long ago. It was maybe it was that long. I mean, not in. God damn it! It wasn't in 1991. That was when he was born.
The fuck are you talking about?
It was only a few years ago.
You know
You know what? Here's the problem. When you get to a certain age, it's like, it's as if 1991 and
I live with you.
2013 are the same
amount of time
ago.
You've been researching this for weeks, writing down notes. Surely you know what year it happened.
2013. So what I'm saying is, it wasn't that long ago, and I'm sure. Oh no, it was 2014. Fuck, 2014. I'm sorry. Time runs together for me.
It does.
But anyways, this was in May of 2014 in Isla Vista, California. There was a spree killer, mass murderer, Elliot Rodgers. He was 22 years old, and it was all over the news. It was horrific. He drove around town. He killed some sorority girls, and the part that the media really picked up on was that he released a big old manifesto. He put one in writing, and he also was a big YouTube fan. He liked to put things on YouTube, post videos of himself basically just bitching about how unfair his life was.
He was one of the first YouTubers.
He released a video of himself pretty much telling what he was going to do right before he did it. So
someone tags him because he's been there, done
yes, I'll
that.
get into those details more in a little bit, but let's go back to the beginning, because what's really interesting is sort of his descent into madness combined with his completely misogynistic view of life. And one thing that he wrote, this insanely long, basically autobiography of his terrible life, called My Twisted World.
Well, and the first one was called The Story of Us, but then that was rejected.
My Twisted World, the story of Elliot Rodger, he wrote. And that thing was 140 fucking pages, and I read the whole goddamn thing. You're welcome.
You're a reader.
I'll summarize it for you because it was terrible. I mean, you know what? Actually, he was not a bad writer. If you were an English teacher and you were grading his writing, so he obviously was a person with some raw intelligence and some education. He did, he wasn't a goon crawling out of the hills or anything.
I feel like if you heard this news alive, maybe that would have changed things. Maybe you could have made all the difference.
You know what? So here's one. So there were some themes that really ran through his whole feelings about himself and his life. And every single one of them is just one of those, they're just those cringy things that really, people that you can't stand tend to talk about these things. And the biggest one to me was how things not being fair. And I know you hate that too.
I do hate that phrase.
He felt like things weren't fair from day fucking one. And it's a recurring theme throughout his life, feeling like things weren't fair. He was getting the short end of the stick. And let me tell you, he was a privileged kid. So this was completely skewed. He felt like things weren't fair. He was constantly blaming other people for things that he felt, terrible things that he felt were happening to him, which, P.S., nothing terrible happened to him. He also had this sort of running theme of specialness. He was real insecure, but he also felt kind of special and superior at the same time. And respect. He felt like respect was a big, big issue. But that fairness thing, he really, latched onto that. So he starts, he literally starts from day one in his manifesto, talking about when he was born.
Oh, my.
He was born in England. His dad was English. His mother was Chinese. He was born in 1991. And from, the second sentence in this, he mentions how he was born really small. He had a small birth weight. And that's another
Is there a micropenis here?
I don't know. Well, and the world will never know because...
Well, somebody knows.
No, he knows. But apparently
They do autopsies.
nobody else knows because his other, one of his nicknames that came up after this happened was the Virgin Killer. So,
wow, that is the worst nickname you can get.
Isn't that like, do you want to draw attention to yourself and leave a lasting legacy of being known as the Virgin Killer?
The BTK Killer and the VK Killer.
Oh,
or I guess VK.
God. I mean,
not VK
anyway.
Killer. All right.
So he starts bitching from the moment he is born. He talks about, his grandfather dying when he was 4, but he just says it was like a very sad day. He's not real good at describing any feelings besides anger, but he'll like describe them in terms of how he thinks people should feel. Like if someone dies, he'll say it was a sad day. Or if something happened, like they went to Disney World or something, it was like it was a joy-filled day.
Sounds like
that kind of thing. Like he wasn't like I loved it. It was so fun. He's like it was a happy day. It's like a weird, like he was kind of like a robot. He didn't understand how humans felt.
It sounds like the writings of J.R. Tolkien and how he describes a scene and people reacting to things. The wizard was furious. It was a dark day. But I mean, like very...
Maybe, yeah.
Just real quick.
He sort of fancied himself like a special little wizard.
A native British, a native Chinese woman getting married, I gotta think that must be the worst cuisine ever. I mean, if they're actually making their own home cooked meal.
His mother was like, I think she was originally from China, but I think she had grown up somewhere else. What are you talking about? Chinese food is amazing.
American Chinese food is amazing. Chinese food is god-awful.
Have you been to China?
I've been to a lot of places.
Well, anyway. Anyways, one of the things he mentions right off the bat about his mother is that she dated Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, I think, or George Lucas. Fuck, man.
It was George Lucas.
George Lucas. Thank you.
I just read that line.
One of the things that he mentions right off the bat is that his mother once dated George Lucas.
Wow.
Yeah, he was very proud of that fact, and it was like it gave him some street cred, and
debasing
who knows
characters
if
off
it
of her?
was true? I don't know. So, anyways, he had a baby sister born when he was about 4, and then they moved to the U.S. So he started off life in England, and then they quickly moved to the U.S. One thing he noted, pretty much the only thing he noted about his baby sister, besides saying that he was sick on the night she was born, which he then said was a bad omen. And when he said that, I was like, fuck, what happened to his baby sister? It was a bad omen. Oh, nothing. It was a bad omen somehow that he was sick when his baby sister was born.
How old was he?
He read meaning into everything. He was 4 or 5. I think.
This guy needed to get laid.
He also remembered, what he really remembered about when his baby sister was born was that they moved to a new house in the U.S. and he wanted this one particular room that he felt was the best room. And his parents said, no, your baby sister's getting that room because it's the closest to our bedroom. And he was upset because it wasn't...
the best?
Fair.
Wasn't fair.
Yeah, wasn't fair.
All right, that's our theme.
Yeah. Then he goes on to talk about, kindergarten, and then this is when he starts to make enemies in kindergarten, and with no sense of irony either. He's not saying in a kind of playful way about how some other 5-year-old was his enemy. No, he's completely serious. He calls this kid Joey a rotten little prick who became his quote greatest enemy, end quote. I completely serious. He said he's very proud of the fact that he had a birthday party. He invited everyone in his class except Joey, and he called it an act of revenge. And
vengeance was mine.
And then he said he felt a sense of satisfaction. I mean, what a sick little fucker. Even in kindergarten, who does that? Who's that manipulative and seeking revenge? Isn't that kind of weird?
What did the fight have started over?
I don't.
Blocks?
He never even mentions it. He just felt like this kid was wronged him and didn't respect him and was mean or something. It was just some really nebulous thing.
Joey now is like, who?
I know. Well, can you imagine? So they actually watched a bunch of YouTube videos of interviews with people, and there were a couple interviews with people who were his friends or acquaintances growing up who were actually mentioned in this manifesto, and they were weirded. I mean, can you imagine? Anyway, I'll get more into that later, but he talks about having this one friend in kindergarten named Maddie, and he says she was my first and last female friend. Then he also talks about how they took
Wait, what year? Kindergarten?
Kindergarten.
His first and last female friend was in kindergarten?
Yes, and then he talks about how they were so close, their families were really good friends, and they even took baths together, which he then says that was the only time in my life I would see a girl my age naked.
Okay. I mean, there's got to be some kind of micropenis thing going on here.
So then he's talking about, so this girl was his friend, and you know, they played together, and he talks about how, like, they were so innocent, and how he, you know, had no idea at the time that she would come to represent everything I hate and despise. He was a real fucking drama queen. He talks in this, like, you know who he kind of sounds like? He sounds like he's trying to talk like a supervillain. Like, he uses a lot of these, like, that was an actual quote. He said she would come to represent everything I hate and despise. Who talks like that?
A very important person, Laura.
Mm-hmm. And also
maybe you should respect.
Hey, did you play a lot of video games growing up?
Yes.
Were there, like, powerful wizards in it who kind of talked formally?
The great ones, yeah.
Yeah, so guess who else really liked video games?
I don't know, George Lucas?
Well, probably, but Elliot Rodgers.
His only flaw.
He discovered video games in first grade. And, you know, this is going to be
discovered video games, yeah.
This is going to be a big part of his life,
Hey, Magellan, come over here, I got Pac-Man.
And I think that, can you guess? Okay, wait, guess right now what game he really got into later in life, like in high school, and became obsessed with, and even pretty much dropped out of school and played this every day, all day, and he rose up really high in the levels.
Warcraft.
Yes.
Okay, because EverQuest probably wasn't that big back then. But...
No, World of Warcraft. And I
in high school?
Yeah.
Well,
and I kind of feel like
you can't.
Well, and I kind of feel like he was like talking about. He spent a lot of time talking about how well I don't understand World of Warcraft, so I'm sorry, I'm probably using the wrong terminology, but like he got up to high levels. He was like what his character did and stuff, and I feel like that gave him sort of a grandiose sense.
Let me make a bold statement here.
Please.
Warcraft has a duty to the consumers out there. They should have some kind of safety feature where you're not allowed to play the game until you can prove that you've been inside a woman. Because once you start playing that game, I mean, I've played that game. I can only imagine if I had that game when I was 15 or 16 years old. Because, because I was getting laid at 17.
Yeah, right.
Well, okay. So anywho, if I had that game,
it seems like a strict rule. I think what it should have instead is a cutoff point. Like, you should only be able to play for like 3 hours a day, and then it should just shut you off for 24 hours.
No, you can't do that. No, I'm just saying it's one of those things where
you could do that.
You get in, you're down the rabbit hole, and that's the only hole you're getting down at for a long time because it's a great game.
If you feel like you're not getting any action, and then you just get so into World of Warcraft that it literally becomes your entire world, guess what? There is going to be less and less and less of a chance.
Let me show you something here. See this keyboard on this computer here? World of Warcraft isn't on consoles like Xbox or PlayStation.
Right. It's a computer game.
Because there's not enough buttons on the controllers.
Right.
Because
it's complex.
You need about 15 buttons to bind spells to people, do power-ups, and you're playing the game with headphones, and you're talking to people, and they keep adding new content.
Oh, yeah.
You know that card game I play on my phone?
Yes.
That's part of...
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I married such a cool guy.
You did marry a cool guy. And then you married me.
Anyway. Yeah. So he gets into video games in first grade. He discovers them. I don't know what video game it was, like Sega Genesis, something like that.
Altered Beast.
No, I don't think it was even as cool as Altered Beast. Like
it was like the standard game with Genesis.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure he did, but he didn't mention Altered Beast at all.
I like Altered Beast.
That's the one that says "Rise from your grave."
Yeah, it's a great game.
Yep. Okay, so another big turning point in his first grade year was that his parents got divorced.
Okay, that's actually significant, I suppose.
Right, which is significant, but we all know that children whose parents get divorced become killers, right?
Where does he live again?
California.
And his parents aren't poor?
Oh, my God, no. His dad is a producer. Some kind of producer. Yeah.
Okay. So,
and his mom, like, even when his parents get divorced, he doesn't really mention what his mom does after they get divorced. I don't know if she was working or not, or she was getting alimony. I don't know. But they were both, he was describing the places they lived in LA, and I lived in LA, and they lived in nice areas.
Well, let's flash forward a little bit here. So we got the first grade kindergarten, but what age is he when he's writing this manifesto? Like
22.
22.
Or, I mean, I don't know when he started writing it. I think probably, probably right at the end.
So let's go to like the significant formative years. So let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly skip ahead because there are some important things that happen in his very young years. I'm trying to go kind of quickly through it.
Divorce.
But he says again, his parents divorced. He considers this a turning point, but he says again that it was a very sad day. Isn't that weird? I mean, he does say that he was shocked and outraged, but I just feel like those are weird ways to describe like a 7-year-old's feelings about his parents getting divorced, don't you think?
The Warcraft, no, not for a guy in Warcraft.
He's not into Warcraft yet.
No,
at that age.
at the manifesto he is.
But at the end of manifesto age, he's seeing everything through a Warcraft lens.
It's the Tolkien thing. You're speaking. It's almost like you look at
well,
your
what
life
it
as
is,
in third
what
person.
I saw it, when I read it, the whole thing. I mean, he's actually sort of, he tells a story in a real linear way, and he's describing all these minute things that happen. But it was like he was describing somebody's. Yeah, it was like he was describing somebody's lifelong journey or something. Like he was describing it in these sort of grand terms, as if this was this, he was this like, King Arthur type character who had, had this like lifelong quest to get laid, basically, and had failed at every turn.
That's why virgins should not play Warcraft in high school. I'm telling you, like, you don't want to.
Well, there's going to be more about that. So let me just quickly get up to that area. But don't forget, he's only 22 when this big event happens. So if I skip right to high school, we're skipping a lot.
No. I'm just wondering.
I mean, high school was most of his.
I just feel like kindergarten, first grade have absorbed quite a bit of.
Well, so his dad quickly after the divorce shows up with this girlfriend, and
again, producer, Southern California. Divorce. These are all things that should happen.
Right. So I think she's like, good looking, and he makes a big point to mention that she's from a prominent family, I think from Morocco. Yeah, a prominent family in Morocco, which I don't even know how he would know she was from a prominent family in Morocco.
This is Anthony Kiedis of the Chili Peppers. He'd be fucking that girl. Have you read his biography?
Oh my God, no, but I want to.
You need to.
I love Anthony
His dad was amazing. Like Anthony Kiedis was like banging his dad's friends when he was
Jesus.
11 years
That's
old.
Not good. Okay, anyway.
No, it's terrible. It's horribly for him. What a horrible life he's had.
He did have that time where he was really into heroin.
That time where he survived here for 20 years doing the best drug in the world, hanging out with all of his friends.
Still looks pretty good too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Elliot Rodger's dad shows up with this like good-looking, wealthy, I'm guessing, girlfriend who moves in with them pretty much immediately after the divorce. And what Elliot Rodger takes from this is that he's impressed that his dad was able to just get a woman to shack up with him. He finds it impressive, and it raises his regard for his dad. He's like in awe of it.
This is all like retroactive. Cool. As a kid, he's probably like,
yeah, exactly. Who knows what exactly he thought at the time, but he's remembered. This is his skewed memory of things.
To be perfectly honest, when I was like 30-ish and I was single and not married, I'm like, how the fuck did my parents get married at 22? I feel like I know. I could barely. I can't find my keys right now. And
I still feel. I can't believe we're like solid adults. It's crazy.
No.
So,
solid.
Anyways, he likes his girlfriend at first, but then she starts like disciplining him in ways that he describes as if they're, extremely unfair. But it sounded pretty standard. I mean,
she made me go to bed.
He talks about she made him eat this soup. That he hated.
I ate the soup, but the fury was burning in my mouth.
He makes quite a bit of point to talk about how he then really gets into Pokemon. I mean, this is just all adding up to one big giant nerd. But at the same time, I knew a lot of guys who were into Pokemon and later into World of Warcraft, and they turned out okay.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sure Pokemon was a thing for a certain age group.
It was.
You can't, and Warcraft isn't a terrible thing. I'm just saying.
Right.
It's pretty immersive.
So at this point in his life, he says how he was pretty, happy. I mean, here's only like in third grade at this point. He says, life was, I'm going to read you a quote, fair and life was satisfying. Proving self-worth and gaining validation among our peers was achieved in a fair manner by how good we were at games we played and how big our Pokemon collections were. No one had unfair advantages. This was perfect, and this is how life should be.
Oh my God!
I know.
My dad's motto, which he would say to us, my dad would always say to us with a shit-eating grin when we were happy. Who told you life was going to be fair? And he'd give me a pack of cigarettes and say, Merry Christmas.
Sounds like your dad.
It does. Well, the first part's mostly true.
And Elliot Rodger, like, as he's writing this at age 22, he is still bragging about his Pokemon collection. He really is. He's talking about how big it is, and he had some kind of special one, which I've forgotten what it was called, because Pokemon doesn't really, I don't understand it.
I unlocked every character in GoldenEye. I'm still bragging about that. No. I don't
he was really, he was really impressed by money, too, at a young age. Like, he talks about this friend, and this friend's grandfather was a millionaire, and this friend, and this friend, and this friend's father was a director, and da-da-da-da. I mean, it was L.A. L.A. is kind of like that, and his dad may have been kind of in that world because he was kind of in the entertainment
business. This is a
business.
reimagination of his own
But
childhood.
I think it absolutely. Well, and the thing is when I started researching this guy, all I knew was that he was called the Virgin Killer and that he had been bitching about how women didn't like him.
See,
and what I imagined really was that he was going to be this guy who like was so creepy that girls didn't like him. But it was really different than that. Go ahead. What were we going to say?
I was going to when I heard the Virgin Killer, I assumed he's killing virgins, but
I know that would have been
it'd be more of a Salt Lake City thing to do.
Well, that would make more sense. I know it's a bad nickname.
Where do you find a virgin in Los Angeles, though?
Maybe it was the Killer Virgin.
The Killer Virgin.
Oh, that's even worse.
That's like a great
band
terrible.
Name.
Ooh.
That's a terrible.
I'm always looking for new names for a band.
No.
I'm Dave, and this is the Killer Virgins.
So he's so pathetic that he even talks about, like, when he went trick-or-treating as a kid, how he and his friends would go trick-or-treating, like, up in the wealthy neighborhoods in the Palisades where the wealthy families were, and he says, the candy they gave us was in much larger amounts, obviously. Oh, my God.
It's annoying, but back to my band idea for the Killer Virgins.
Oh, my God,
You know what the name of our first album's going to be?
Mm-hmm.
The Homicidal Hymens.
Ugh, that's gross. And so anyways, I won't read you every bit of his pathetic life, but I mean, really, I just have to find some choice parts. I mean, he talks about, as he's like in late elementary, that he starts to notice that the other kids, that there exist other children that are like better at sports than him. And then he also starts to notice that some of these boys, are like taller than him and that, they seem to get more respect. So that starts to be like a thing where he starts to like envy them. At least in retrospect, he's envying them. And you got to wonder, like, because I did think going in, I thought this is going to be a guy who's just a total misogynist and he's probably been super creepy his whole life and girls, didn't like him. Because if you look at and you watch his creepy ass videos, you see he's not a bad looking guy. He's a kind of a good looking kid, but he's just such a douchey creep in it, talking about how he's the supreme gentleman and women don't like him, that I thought, God, he must have just really had such a creepy vibe to him that women were just repulsed. But what turns out, really, when you really read through this, and this is his own manifesto, so he could have fabricated stuff, and I'm sure he did, but he made no effort to really make it sound like he ever even attempted to hook up with any girls. That was what was really shocking to me. Like, there were no descriptions through this whole fucking 140 plus page thing where he describes like asking a girl out, or trying to kiss a girl at a party, or giving a girl a Valentine. Nothing. What he was so hung up on was that girls didn't just, I don't know, fall out of the sky into his lap, I guess. Just appear before him. It was really bizarre. Like, he really, and then, he gets crazier and crazier as he goes through this. And as he starts to talk about, in high school and beyond, he starts to talk about girls like giving him, not looking at him or not returning. Like, if he's the most he ever does is smile at a girl and then they don't smile back. I mean, that is the most attempt he makes. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, this wasn't an ugly kid. It was a kid with a lot of money. I bet if he'd made a move, if he'd tried 10 times at 10 different parties, if he'd gone to 10 parties and tried, he would have gotten some action once at least.
I need to start a foundation like they do for the kids that are LGBT. It gets better, and do that for nerds.
Well,
I go there. I could be inspirational speaker.
I know so many. Every nerdy guy that I went to high school with that I was like, ooh, too nerdy for me, is now like has a great, cool job and is like in a good relationship. And I mean, like each one, like if I think of the 10 like dorkiest guys that I knew in high school, who I will not name, but they all have turned out great, and they've all found significant others that, and
most of those 10 guys probably listen to the show right now too, so
right,
probably shouldn't name names, and
like good looking significant others, I mean, like it's actually, when we all grow up, a lot of the times the nerds are appealing because they tend to
have bigger penises.
Well, they tend to be smart and kind of maybe sometimes creative, or they worked hard in school, so they have good jobs, and they're fun and funny. They had to like work on their sense of humor to make up for the fact that they weren't like big and brawny in high school. So it all works out. But yeah, he made zero effort. And it was really like, I think, how long was this kid really mentally ill?
Well, here's the thing. Up until the point that I had sex, I was convinced that it was never going to happen. I couldn't see it happening. I pretty much saw myself on a path to like, well, I'll just sit for a hooker one day. That'll be the plan, because I am never going to get laid. And then after I got laid, I think right when it was happening, about 30 seconds into it, I started thinking about Jurassic Park again. So, I mean, really, it was great. And I'm like, oh. And after that, it was just all easy. It just wasn't, it was never a second thought. But like,
oh my God. Yeah, that's the thing. But here's the thing. You would think, why didn't Elliot Rodgers just go find a prostitute? Because that would have been beneath him. He felt, and he even talks about how he felt there were hierarchies, that some people were better than others just inherently. He just had so many times where he was just jealous. He even says, so at one point he says, and he's like talking about when he's like 10 here, he says, 9, he says, any problem I had at 9 years old was nirvana compared to what I was doomed to face. I mean, doomed to face what? He was, a nerdy guy who locked himself in his bedroom basically all through high school playing World of Warcraft, then went off to college, made zero effort to talk to any girls, just walked around campus salty as fuck that girls were talking to guys that weren't him. And I think he just expected that I don't know what he thought. And then it really makes me wonder, like, did he have some sort of like, besides being psychotic or some kind of significant mental illness where he lost touch with reality completely at the end. But besides that, and severe depression, which if you read this, I mean, you could tell, like from high school on, I mean, he was dropping out of school. His parents had him in therapy. His friends said he was totally withdrawn. He hated people. His parents had their friends trying to talk to him and trying to kind of pull him out and help him. And I mean, he was obviously really, really depressed. Besides all that, I feel like he really didn't understand how people, how humans function. Like, it's like he didn't understand that, like, you have to talk to people to get them to talk back to you.
I think it's a lawsuit against Blizzard that makes World of Warcraft here.
I mean, really, it's like, and then I think, well, maybe he had some kind of, like, social communication difficulties where he just kind of didn't understand how relationships worked. I mean, all of his descriptions.
I don't understand relationships work.
No. You do. All his descriptions of friendships.
I honestly don't.
Here's what he talks about. He talks about either playing a video game or skateboarding, which he got into for a little while, or something like that, something that they were doing. And then he devolves into talking about how one person became better than him, and then he totally stopped. So his friendships were not based on, like, there was no give and take. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so he's kind of a weirdo, for lack of a better. I mean,
sure.
He needs to be number one, but he's not number one at anything.
Right.
I mean, so where does the friend zone stuff come from? Was he actually friends with anyone?
Well, let me skip ahead a little bit here. So, and several times during his description of his life, his family moves, and each time they move, there's one bedroom that he thinks is the best one, and if he doesn't get it, he's very upset. Is that, like, weird?
He sounds insufferable.
He does sound insufferable.
Oh, my God.
I know. He starts to collect Beanie Babies, like in middle school, too. So he's got Beanie Babies, he's got skateboarding, he's got Pokemon at that point. So then he talks about, here's his next turning point. In, like, 5th grade, he sees, like, some kid bring some naked pictures on this camping trip, this school camping trip.
Of him, I hope, right?
No, like a magazine, some kind of, like, porn.
How old is he?
5th or 6th grade, 5th grade.
It's a great age for naked pictures.
5th grade. So he just sort of says, like, that was the first time he saw naked girls, and, like, that he just sort of laments that later on he never gets to see it in real life.
Okay, you know what?
He's really into skateboarding. This is so sad. Really into skateboarding. His parents sound actually pretty fucking supportive. Like, his mom, like, totally is like, okay, sure, so skateboarding sounds like a good social thing. Let me try to help you. I'll take you to skate park, da-da-da. Okay, so eventually he sees some kids at the skate park who are better skateboarders than him. Totally quits. Quit skateboarding. He says he failed and his dreams were defeated.
God, I hope he never watched a porno. That would really dissuade him from sex.
My God. Yeah. So then he goes to middle school, which, as everybody knows, middle school is the deepest pit of hell.
I don't. Yeah.
Well, you know what? You did not go in a straight linear line from public elementary through public high school. You skipped middle school and went to a nice private middle school. So
Yeah.
you may have missed that hellish.
But my dad was a middle school principal, so I had it all at home.
Well, anyway, I feel like don't you think we can agree that middle school is probably the apex of like social hierarchies and, you know, mean kids and popular kids and that whole like John Hughes kind of social strata?
Yes and no. I mean,
I feel like after middle school that subsides substantially. But anyways, middle school, you know, he goes to a new school and he says, actually, some girls were nice to him, which, you know, he was like, oh, girls were nice to me. And you know, that's the only time he mentions girls were nice to me. It doesn't really elaborate. He just says, like, they smiled and they were, like, not mean to him. But he didn't really make any friends. So his parents forced him to go to summer camp, where he describes this event that he said was traumatic. Okay? This is the first time that he was treated meanly by a girl. And here's what happened. And you can see this example is how, in his mind, such a small event just snowballed in his brain into this just huge affront to his whole being,
okay.
You know, causing him to murder people later. Okay, so this was traumatic. He bumps into a girl accidentally. Just bumps into her, and she swears at him. She cursed at me, he says.
You do that to me like at least once a day.
She cursed at me. Then he sees her later with sees her later with a cool boy. All right?
One that doesn't bump into him.
He says he hates that boy, and then later he says, I bet he lived a good life.
He probably did live a good life. He said,
and then
summer camp.
Yeah, and then so the traumatic event was, no, just kidding, that was it. That was the traumatic event. He bumped into a girl, she turned around and cursed at him, he saw her with a cool boy later. The end.
Laura.
That was the traumatic event that he describes as being this huge, like, event in his life that was like a turning point towards his hatred towards women. Women were mean to him. He bumps into someone and they probably say, like, you know,
just like one day with you, he'll be running back to that girl.
But isn't that...
I can't look at a phone in bed without getting
Isn't that weird? He says it ruined the camp, and this is a direct quote from his manifesto, ruined a part of my life. I want to just say this. Like, if you're so sensitive that somebody swearing at you when you accidentally bump into them ruins a part of your life, I feel like you're just too sensitive for this earth. You should just...
Well, problem solved, because it sounds like he's not on this earth anymore.
Well, he's not, but he probably should have taken himself out before he took a bunch of other people with him.
How many spree killers have you inspired? That's
I don't even know, but
such a mean girl.
mean, God damn it. I know. How many boys was I mean to?
Well, that story you told me about Little Boy 1 and Little Boy 2.
Well, but I wasn't mean to them. I was just teasing.
Laura had two boys. Her nicknames were Little Boy 1 and Little Boy 2, and she'd make them fetch her things like a vampire would do for a familiar.
No.
Bring me a cigarette, Little Boy 1.
No, but you know what? That was all in good fun. And neither of those guys grew up to be killers so far.
One of them got laid, so...
I'm sure they both did. Not by me, though.
No, not by you.
Oh, my God. He even starts to say he starts to hate going to the movies because he sees couples there and it makes him feel bad. It's like he feels that at a certain point of his life, a girlfriend should have just appeared before him, and it didn't happen.
I've had the exact same feelings.
Remember that scene in Animal House when the kid's like in bed
and
the girl in the Playboy bunny?
Thank you, God.
She comes flying through the window and lands on his bed.
No, but those are incredibly normal feelings because you're just waiting for it to appear. It's like you want to win the lottery. The thing is with sex, everybody wins the lottery at some point. That's the best thing about it.
Look at Rick Ocasek. Look how ugly he is. All you got to do is like become a rock star, be cool. He's married to a supermodel.
Yeah.
There is no man on earth who is too ugly, too dumb, or too irritating to have sex at some point. Because I have met guys who are pretty ugly, dumb, and irritating, and I can promise they've all had sex at some point.
This is my wife, ladies and gentlemen. This is my wife. No, I'm
not talking about you, of course.
Of course not.
I'm not.
No, and here's the thing. back to sex in Jurassic Park, because that to me was a really amazing thing. I was so into Jurassic Park for so long, and I just thought this is the greatest movie ever. I'm like, I honestly thought maybe I like Jurassic Park so much that's why I can't get laid. This is the thought that ran through my head.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I spent a lot of time in high school imagining at football practice dinosaurs coming out and eating the members of the coaching staff. And in almost every scenario where I was unhappy, there'd be a velociraptor that would come into the hallway and like grab somebody I hated and like eat them, and like it would literally invade my thoughts where every problem got solved via Jurassic Park. And and I've told you before, all my different scenarios where I would make Jurassic Park work better and run better and make it successful, which I thought, well, this is probably I'm not getting laid. And it probably had something to do with it, too, because I did spend a lot of time thinking about ways Jurassic Park could have worked and various things the dinosaurs could do to people in real life and why maybe I should make a dinosaur. But, no. And then I'm pretty sure after I got laid, I watched Jurassic Park within 2 or 3 hours, and I enjoy. And really, it's just a perfect movie. And I think even when I'm having sex right now, the theme of Jurassic Park is going through my head.
Oh, my God.
Remember I used to play that in bed?
No. Jesus. All right. Well, this episode, I'm sorry, is not talking a lot about murder. But
okay.
I think that, you know what? Can I just interject?
Yeah.
I feel like we are hitting the awkward situations in this episode.
We're hitting a lot of them.
This kid's entire life was awkward.
But so was mine.
Right. And so
was a lot of people. You've been there for some awkward situations.
Everyone's been in an awkward situation.
I mean, I went on that date with you. It was a complete disaster.
Oh, God. Well, you shouldn't have taken me to see Star Trek. That was your first mistake. I told you I was not a Star Trek fan.
I didn't hear that, and I really thought you enjoyed
heard it. You just thought you would sway me.
I was wearing a muscle shirt because I was feeling pretty ripped, and I was more like...
You were not wearing a muscle shirt.
In my mind, I was.
I've never seen you wear a muscle shirt.
Oh, show off my giant arm muscles.
Oh, boy. Okay, so back to Elliot Rodgers, because we're still in middle school here, but really he doesn't have too much farther to go because he became a killer pretty young. But anyways, he sees his first porno like around the end of middle school, and that's when he realizes that like sex is a thing, because I guess they didn't have sex ed and his parents didn't buy him a book about how babies are made, so he had no idea about intercourse. So he sees a porn and he says that destroyed his life, because now he realizes sex is a thing and that he hasn't had it yet. And then from that point on, he becomes obsessed with everybody who is having sex and the fact that he isn't. But instead of like doing anything about it ever, instead he becomes completely absorbed with World of Warcraft.
Well, based on what you're saying too, if he was watching a porn, like I said, he's gonna think his penis is too small. That's gonna freak him out.
He didn't mention it, which is shocking, because he does describe his first like episodes of masturbation, which is too disgusting to go into detail.
I immediately disagree with you.
I don't want to hear it because I don't want to think about this sniveling little asshole. Ugh. Anyways, and he just talks in really technical terms. It's the opposite of erotic. You don't want to hear it. Anyways, but he does mention around this era, so he's really into World of Warcraft. Around the same time, he sees his first porn, which is really kind of late in life, I feel like, to realize that sex is a thing. He's like in 8th grade. Into middle school. But his mom moves into an apartment at that point, which he is just humiliated by. Because he's a fucking snob. But the one upside of his mom's apartment... high-speed internet. So he becomes just immersed in World of Warcraft. Also, he plays Halo sometimes.
Well, Halo's a great game.
But, I mean, I feel like Halo is more just a game you play sometimes. But World of Warcraft became all-encompassing. So he goes off to high school.
Halo's very social compared to World of Warcraft, though, too. And simple.
Yeah, he had begged his parents to go to this all-boys private high school because he thought then he could avoid girls being mean to him. So he goes. He hates it because he's bullied and teased because he's weird. He even talks about how he acts weird to get attention.
You know what? The whole thing's about his penis here. I swear to God, it could be a normal-sized penis.
I wish we knew.
No.
I wish we knew.
He's not going to say that because of his ego, but he's probably so afraid that they'll make fun of his penis. If this is a guy who walks away from a skateboard park in sports because he's not the best...
And talks about how he's small from birth.
You watch one porno... I remember the first porno I saw...
I mean, that's not a fair portrayal of most men's reality.
But I'm saying... You say most men's... Any man, you mean any man. No, but I'm just... You watch it, but this is a guy, like I said, he'd walk away from things where he wasn't the best. He watched a porno, he's like, well, shit. This ain't gonna happen.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So he begs to go to an all-boys high school. Why he would think that would be better, he was sorely misguided. So he goes to this all-boys high school. His parents send him because it sounds like at this point they're like just kind of desperate for him to make friends. He's weird. He's depressed. He's playing video games. He can't really make friends or keep them. And later on, people kind of who knew him then say, he was all right. He's just real quiet. He's just kind of shy and weird. Like in his mind, people were being mean to him, but to them, he was just this quiet kid.
Right.
Like he had this fantasy world really in his head of people being mean. Like he just says one thing in high school that, he leaves the private high school almost immediately because he hates it. He just hates it. So he goes to public high school, and then he has this big revelation when some boy calls him a loser or something, and this boy that's standing with some hot girls or something calls him a loser, and he says, this is his quote, "The meanest and depraved men come out on top, and women flock to them. Their evil acts are rewarded by women, while good, decent men are laughed at."
And there we have it.
Doesn't that sound like someone who's describing his quest? Doesn't that sound kind of...
But it sounds like every douchebag asshole who complains about being put in the friend zone was like...
Why no?
The
good guys.
Girls only like assholes. I'm such a good guy. I earned it. I deserve to have it. I'm going to take it.
Let me tell you something.
I'll become what I hate.
Let me tell you something, any teenage boys that might be listening to this, which probably aren't any, but you never know.
Yeah.
Here's what girls are really attracted to. Confidence. And that sounds like something your mother would say, but it is absolutely true.
No,
if you are confident, and that's why those dickish guys. I'm not saying be a dick. I am not saying
I
that.
am. Be a dick, guys.
I'm not. Do not. Yes, the mean dickish boys get girls in high school, but
right, be a dick
but
early. Be
no,
a dick later.
Stop. Shut the fuck up. Who was a teenage girl? No, but also the boys who just exude confidence, even if they're nerdy or weird or whatever, if they're acting like they think they, could confidently score with you, that's kind of like, oh, okay, that is way more appealing than a guy who's going to just snivel in the corner and bitch and moan that, nobody's talking to him. So, it sounds like something your grandma would say, but I swear to God that is true. That is like the number one most attractive trait. And it just so happens that a lot of really douchey guys in high school have that bravado that looks like confidence, and girls are like, oh, okay, he must be cool. Because teenage girls are crazy, which we've covered in previous episodes.
Yes.
Teenagers are all fucking nuts. And I'm sorry, even at 22, you still have an immature frontal lobe, and so he was still probably quite a teenager.
But a barbed wire tattoo and chugging a beer can and kicking in the nuts in front of a girl will probably get you laid in high school.
So this little whiny baby then talks about how he drops out of high school and he goes to online high school. He starts doing this online high school, which is really a bad idea because he's really just playing World of Warcraft, I think. He does make a big point, again, of losing the big bedroom because his baby brother's nanny needs it. But then he also talks about how he saves his baby brother from drowning. And then he basically says, like, in a sort of, like, Tolkien type way that, like, he owes me his life because he wouldn't be alive if I hadn't saved him from drowning.
Life debt is owed.
Really. Then he talks like he felt like his life was so terrible, and really he was this wealthy, doted on, loved child whose parents did everything to support him. He says at one point that his father lost a lot of money trying to make some move, and he says, "Could things get any worse for me?" I said, it's all about him. It's all about him.
If we had a son that didn't get laid by the time he was like 19 or 20, I would just hooker that shit up.
My God. Like, his friends should have, if he'd had friends, they should have banded together and, like, this sounds very anti-feminist, but they should have purchased a prostitute for him to pretend to not be a prostitute, to come to a party when he was in college and just hit on him and just get him laid so that he would go on to not murder people.
No, I'm saying, at least you're paying for it.
The problem is with that, though, I retract that, because it would have happened once, and then he would have thought...
Best that he ever had.
Then he would have thought, yes, women will come to me. And then it wouldn't have happened again. And then
but it happens once, that's enough.
It is usually enough. It's usually enough to keep people from going off the deep end about this, but... he really was mentally ill. It was most of those guys, as terrible as they are on like the Incel Reddit and everything, are not going to go on to kill people. They're bitching and moaning, but you know, they're not psychotic. But he was not in touch with reality. He was really seeing things in a real blown way, way, way out of proportion in a crazy kind of way. Crazy is not a politically correct term, I realize, but I keep saying psychotic, but I'm not sure that's the right term. Some kind of significant mental illness, though. But he also talks about how this horrible event that will haunt him forever was when his friend like made out with a girl at a party. You know, he starts hearing kids talk about parties, you know, and how, you know, they all have girlfriends, and he actually threatens to commit suicide and tells his family,
I'm king of the Murlocs, and they don't even realize it.
Right, he's like, I'm a level 6 blood elf, or something like that.
Blood elf is
I don't know. That tells you my knowledge of World of Warcraft is extremely limited.
That's a blood elf.
But he does, I don't know, I just made that up. I heard it somewhere. It's from some video game, I promise.
I'm sure it is.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
There's dark elves, but I mean...
I don't know. I made it up. Anyways, he tells his family at some point that he wants to commit suicide. So that's pretty significant, you know? And so his family talks to him for 3 hours to cheer him up. All right? This is in high school now. So his parents put him in therapy. I mean, he's in therapy. There are warning signs, and they are trying to help him this whole time. So people always say, like, you know, you can hear Barbara Walters saying, were there warning signs? And the parents were like, yes, there were warning signs. And we had him in therapy and we were watching him, but we didn't fucking know he was going to kill people. What they didn't know was that he bought a bunch of guns later. But that comes later. So...
there's not a lot of warning signs for spree killing, usually.
That's the thing. They thought he was this very non-violent seeming kid. I mean, he didn't get in fist fights. He didn't, you know...
Well, can I be... killing someone with a gun isn't that violent. I know it sounds like a strong statement, but
I'm going to get to that spree in a minute.
Right, but I'm just saying pulling a trigger on someone, and I think that a lot of times, people... It makes it too easy to take a life.
So this is around the point where he starts to fantasize about stopping everybody from having sex. It's the old, like, if I can't have it, no one can. It's kind of how... It's kind of similar to that argument where, like... you know, really horrible, abusive men kill their wives or girlfriends when they break up with them, because it's like, if I can't have them, then nobody can. So he's like, if I'm not having sex, then none of you people who are having sex should be allowed to live. So anyways, so at this point, you know, and he's talking about, like, why was I condemned to suffer? I mean, he's just... he is obsessed with the fact that he has never had sex. So he somehow graduates from high school, though, and he starts taking college classes. He decides that he is going to, this was sort of like, in his mind, this was a good thing, but it actually turned out to be sort of a bad thing for everybody else. But when he graduates from high school, he sort of forms this, sort of gels this idea in his head that he's going to have this active revenge. Okay, so he starts to form this ideology. Says that he's going to destroy injustices and exact revenge on everyone I envy and hate. Okay, he also decides that in order to really plan this out and really do this, he has to quit World of Warcraft. So he does. So he quits World of Warcraft, but unfortunately then he starts kind of studying up on people's, like, various rises to power and creepy stuff where, I mean, he's sort of researching how to get revenge, basically.
In Warcraft? Or
No, in life. In life. So he starts college, and then he has to kind of start working. So he starts and quits many jobs because he feels that they are beneath him, all of them, all of his jobs.
Holding out for job management.
Exactly. Like, no, he describes, like, several kind of normal jobs for college kids. So then he's taking college classes, he's starting and quitting a bunch of jobs, and then he moves to Isla Vista to go to USC.
Good school.
Yeah. So
good opportunity.
Yeah, and, like,
hot women everywhere.
Right. Which was, you would think, a good opportunity, would just made him really angry, because he would walk around and see these beautiful blonde women and just feel angry that they weren't with him, or that they weren't talking to him or approaching him.
His dad was a producer.
I know.
All he had to say is, my dad is a producer.
All he had to do was just talk to people, probably. And he probably would have eventually found someone who could stand his horrible snobbishness, but he just says he was ignored. ignored.
You're going to be ignored.
That's a big theme. He feels like he's ignored. Like I don't know if it's like he thought he was so. He does refer to himself as the ultimate gentleman and the supreme gentleman. So he really feels like he's something special.
Which, real quick, Laura.
Yeah.
In your life, how many times have you walked up to a man that you thought was hot, cute, or attractive and made like the first move and said who wasn't even looking at you? And,
No.
I mean,
and I hate to say that because that's sexist and whatever, but it's cultural conditioning. And no, I never have.
It's happened to me once. I totally freaked out. Sorry.
Yeah. And what? You screwed it up?
Actually, it's happened more than once and twice, maybe 3 times, but.
Yeah, I wonder if any girls ever sent any signals to him and he just didn't catch them. He didn't sound like he really understood people or social situations. And
whenever a woman was like really forward with me, I would completely fly into a mountain.
Well, that sounds about right.
Yeah. That's a different podcast.
So anyways, he feels he was ignored. So here's at this beautiful college campus. He's salty. So this is when he really kind of turns a corner into beyond severe depression into losing touch with reality. Okay. And he starts to act out. And here are the sort of red flags that I think kind of did get missed. So he talks about, on 2 different occasions, splashing coffee on people on the campus. One of them was a couple, like a hot girl with some guy splashes his Starbucks at them. Mm-hmm. And another is 2 girls in a car. He says hi to them. They ignore him. He circles back around and splashes his coffee on them. I mean, yeah, that sounds hilarious, sort of, if you take it out of context. But in retrospect, that's weird.
They're in a car and they ignored him?
Yeah. Like, I think he was in his car, too, and he said hi or something, and they didn't say hi back.
Wow.
Which, as normal women know, even if you find someone attractive, sometimes you ignore them when they say hi. That's just, sorry.
Yeah,
So, and here's the other thing that really shows that he was really losing touch with the real world, is he gets this idea in his head, and I feel like this is a common theme of, like, that sort of paranoid kind of thinking and that not so, in the real world, is he becomes convinced that the only way he's ever going to get a girl is if he becomes incredibly wealthy. And the only way he'll become incredibly wealthy, since of course he hates working, is to win the lottery. So he literally starts playing the lottery repeatedly, and then he is devastated when he doesn't win each time. He keeps playing the lottery totally. He feels like he's destined to win. So you know what I mean? It's that sort of weird thinking where he feels like there's this grand plan and he's destined to win, and then every time he doesn't win, he's devastated.
He's not wrong, though. He would probably get some action from the lottery. There's probably like a lot of lottery pussy out there.
Maybe. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Probably.
Maybe.
At this point, he was already also kind of planning his day of retribution, as he called it.
Let's back up to your maybe. Think of 3 friends of yours at random if they...
No, I'm sure. No, I'm sure you're right. I'm just... Yeah.
I mean...
But if he had, just stayed in his room all the time afterwards and no one could ever get near him, then, maybe not. That was his problem.
Would find him.
Probably, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, come on.
Anyway, he also reads The Secret at this point, which I never read, but I believe
Kill him!
is a book about how to use the laws of attraction or something, right? I don't know. It's terrible.
The secret is it only works for stupid people.
Yeah. The secret is don't buy self-help books.
No, they want you. It's like you got to make a vision board or start visualizing it, punch in the box, Karate Kid shit.
Yeah, who knows? Anyways, he kind of feels like reading The Secret and then playing the lottery, that it's like he thinks that A plus B equals C. If I do this and this will happen for sure. And it doesn't. And then he's just even more and more devastated. He just gets totally delusional at this point. So around like 2012, 2013, he starts buying guns. He buys a Glock 34 and then he buys a Sig Sauer. And when he describes both of those, he talks about how expensive they were. And he starts going to the shooting range to practice. And he is already planning at that point this day of retribution. Okay. He also discovers this website, PWA Hate. What does that stand for?
What is it?
PWA Hate.com.
PW Hate?
No. Sorry. Delete PUA. I can't read my own handwriting. PUAhate.com.
I have no idea.
It's shut down. Okay, so it's some kind of women hating something. It's some kind of, what does it stand for? Anyways, it's another, group of women hating men who think that they're good guys who women are ignoring.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been shut down, by the way. Yeah, what is it? The forefront of the anti-pickup artist movement. It's a bunch of guys bitching about men who get women and women who don't pay attention to them.
Here's what it says. Revealing the scams, deceptions, and misleading marketing techniques used by dating gurus and the seduction community.
Which does not exist.
These people live in a magical theater world.
They do. The seduction community?
I've been part of that community from time to time. Yeah. Can I just, if anyone is listening, you like Elliot Rodgers, let me just tell you, every time in my life that I've had sex, it was almost a complete surprise to me. Like, seriously. Even the times I paid for it. That's a joke. But, it's like, you can go out on a Friday night, do the same thing 10 nights in a row. The 11th night, you do the same thing, and you fall dick first into some woman.
And from a woman's point... Okay, go ahead.
Finish. No, but I'm saying, but as long as you know, as a guy, that if you don't get laid, you can still go home and watch Jurassic Park and eat Hot Pockets. Life isn't that bad. You're going to get laid. You can literally do nothing. You can do something. It's just going to happen. Okay, maybe not nothing, but like... there's no seduction community.
So there's your advice from a man. So here's the other point of view from a woman is that women are actually people, and they aren't just like vessels for sex that owe you. I mean, really, I think that's a big problem. And not to get into, I won't get into rape culture and everything right now, but really, I think there are a lot of guys out there who feel that women are there for sex, that they owe them, and especially, if they do anything nice, if they smile at this woman and this woman doesn't immediately jump in their lap, then that woman has disrespected them and is a bitch and, should be murdered. I mean, come on. Women are people. They're people. They're people. They're people. Yeah, if you are like Elliot Rodgers, women are people, and Elliot Rodger. I keep calling him Elliot Rodgers, but his name is Elliot Rodger.
Right.
Okay. Anyway. So he's going off the deep end at this point. He goes to a party at USC, and there's a bunch of girls on a ledge, like 10 feet off the ground, and he tries to push them off the ledge. Okay, and instead, some guys there stop him and push him off the ledge and beat him up a little bit or something. They do something. I think they push him off the ledge because he breaks his leg at some point. Then he goes back into the... No, I know what it is. They get him away from it. Then he comes back to the party because he realizes he left his, Gucci sunglasses there. He goes back to this party where he just got beat up. Well, then I think they push him off this ledge or whatever. He breaks his leg. Anyway, that just, of course, riles him up even more. So he's busily planning this day of retribution, and he also decides at this point that he has to kill his 9-year-old brother as part of his retribution.
What?
Because this 9-year-old brother at this point is going to be in a commercial, and the stepmom, the 9-year-old's mother, says about his little brother that he'll be a famous actor by the time he's Elliot's age. So it sounds like she was maybe baiting him a little bit, but so because he thinks there's a possibility that his younger brother, who is 9, is going to grow up to be more successful and get more girls than him, and that's literally what he says, he decides he has to kill him.
Okay, he's fucked up.
Yes, he was very fucked up. He also was going to kill his stepmom just because she would have had to been there. If he had to kill his brother, he was going to have to kill his stepmom too. But I mean, he was really... Yeah, he was nuts by this point. Finds out his sister has a boyfriend. That makes him crazy. Everybody's getting some except for him. So I will now get to the actual crime, which, was pretty horrific. But I mean, that was sort of like all the things that were, leading up. And what's really weird is that I think it was a couple of things. Is this kid was kind of a nerdy kid. I also wonder if he had kind of social, he was one of those kids that had a hard time making friends because he didn't really understand how to talk to people. And he had severe depression, which then it was, compounded by he then had some kind of psychosis on top of that. And he was socially isolated, a lot of things, but he also had this weird thing, it sounds like, through his whole life where he really felt like he was owed a lot of things and he wasn't getting them. But the amazing thing is that through all of it, when he felt like he was so poorly mistreated by women his entire life, he was really making no efforts. And this was not a guy who had a bad breakup. This was not a guy who approached women a million times and was rejected. He never made any attempts. That was the most amazing part. He didn't try. He did not try. He bitched and bitched and bitched about being a virgin and women didn't like him and why. He said, like, I'm good looking and I have expensive clothes and I drive nicely and I have a black BMW. And it's like, nope, he thought that was going to be enough, but he never put any actual effort into, like, talking to women or, like, having women who were friends because he didn't actually really see women as people. And I wonder if he really ever saw any people as people that he was going to relate to in a human kind of way. Do you know what I mean? He didn't understand that he had to actually, like, form relationships with people, like normal friend-type relationships with people. I mean, he didn't ever talk about women, like, talking to them. He didn't try to talk to women ever. And I don't know if that's true of these other guys who are, in this, who are incels or whatever. And
involuntary celibate.
Yeah, involuntary celibate. I had to look that up, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway, I don't know if these guys are in the same boat that they've never tried, but, like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, get the fuck out there and try at least. I mean, I really thought that there was going to be, like, in this long-ass manifesto, there's going to be, like, lots of his bitchy, examples of trying and being rejected. But he was never rejected because he never did anything to cause him to be rejected. He never put himself out there, ever. So I'll move forward.
No.
Do you have thoughts before I get into his actual crime? It's pretty...
Well, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts here, and I think I've said most of them already, but, like, I'm looking at his pictures now. He's a normal, good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like the Karate Kid a little bit. And,
yeah, he had, like, a nice, sharp jawline. I mean, he was a decent-looking guy. There's no reason besides his lack of a personality and crazy thinking. He thought it was all because... I don't know what he thought. He thought he wasn't something enough. Rich enough, good-looking enough, tall enough, athletic enough. He had all these weird thoughts of why, and it's like, I don't really, like, I thought going into this episode that it was going to be, like, these misogynistic assholes, but really also this guy was severely mentally ill. I mean, this was not a guy who was in touch with reality at all by the time this happened.
all right, so what did he do?
Well, on May 23rd, 2014... the first thing that Elliot Rodgers did was he in his apartment stabbed to death his roommates.
Now that's violent.
Stabbed them to death.
Now, the roommates I knew a little bit about just from listening to their podcast, but they were Chinese nationals, right?
Yep. And he hated them because he said he described them as nerds, but apparently they had better social lives than him. So he stabbed them, and he stabbed them one at a time. So it's like one guy came home, he stabbed him, he dragged him away, he tried to clean up the blood, the next guy came in and it sounded like he stabbed him, and then the third guy wasn't even living there, he was like a friend of theirs. So he stabs, and I was like you said, shooting somebody is relatively an easy way to kill someone because it's not that personal. You can do it from far away.
See, I remember there being stabbings here. For some reason I thought he stabbed a woman, but he
nope.
What a dick. Stabs his fucking roommates.
You know what? He hated men as much as women. He hated the men who got women as much as he hated the women.
Well, that's PUA forum's all about, though. Like it's jealousy of the men that are with the woman, and they hate. They're full of hate.
So these poor three students who, these three nerdy students get stabbed to death in their apartment. So that was the first thing. So after that, he goes to a coffee shop. And he's seen in this coffee shop, I think like an hour later. So he killed them at some point in the afternoon or the early evening, it seems like. And then he's seen at this Starbucks buying some coffee and then sitting in his car in the parking lot of his apartment building at about 8:30 on his laptop. So at 9:17 p.m., he uploaded a video to YouTube titled Retribution. And a minute later, he sent that 140-plus page manifesto to a select group of friends and family. All right? So can we play like a short clip of that Retribution YouTube video, and you can hear his slimy voice and just kind of what he's bitching about?
I've been attending college in Santa Barbara for about 2.5 years now. And in those 2.5 years, I've experienced nothing but loneliness and misery.
This is Elliot Rodger.
My problem is girls. There are so many beautiful girls here, but none of them give me a chance. And I don't know why. I don't know why you girls are so repulsed by me. It doesn't make sense. I do everything I can to appear attractive to you. I dress nice. I'm sophisticated. I'm magnificent.
Now, you can't see this, but when he said he was magnificent, he kind of posed like a baby deer looking at a rainbow. I mean, but
you should really look up the video because it is on YouTube, and I know it seems super morbid, but I mean, come on, we're all talking about murder here, so it's all morbid. His videos are all still on YouTube. This video he posted the day that he did this shooting and stabbing. They always call it the shooting, but I mean, he stabbed 3 people. This is the day he made this. He did this. He uploaded this video, and it is still on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. It's kind of long. Play one more clip of it.
I have a nice car, a BMW. Well, it's nicer than 90% of the people in my college. I'm polite. I am the ultimate gentleman. And yet, you girls, you never give me a chance. I don't know why. I put a lot of effort into dressing nice. These sunglasses here were $300. Giorgio Armani. So I'll put them on. See? Hold on.
He's posing.
Car.
He's posing with the sunglasses. That's a car. He's standing on the on the highway making this video.
Look at how fabulous I look.
Like Mystery Science Theater.
He looks okay. He looks genuinely mystified as to why women don't like him.
But you hear the reasons he's giving.
No, but he also is giving like a Joffrey vibe from Game of Thrones.
Oh, absolutely. So Joffrey.
Like,
oh, God.
This
he's
is
so Joffrey. But you know what? Listen to the reasons he's giving. I have a nice car. I dress nice. I'm polite. He thinks that, like, if you have this formula of basically, stuff, really, I mean, to him, it's all, he's a label whore.
Right.
He thinks that if he has expensive clothes and expensive sunglasses.
And that's not going to get women till you're in your mid-20s.
Well, but also, like, that's not the whole thing. You got to actually be a person. He doesn't. See, again, I don't think he understands how people work. He doesn't know how to make friends. He doesn't know how to talk to them. He doesn't understand that you have to talk to people and have a give and take. And his very limited good friends in his life, he had a couple of good friends that, guys that basically the one that he was the closest to, this guy James, eventually says, Elliot has no idea why James doesn't want to talk to me anymore, but he, preceding that, he describes how he just keeps coming over and just ranting about women and how he's not getting any women. So this guy's finally just like, I can't hang out anymore, and he's totally mystified as to why he does not understand people at all. So he kills his roommates, he stabs them to death, he goes to Starbucks, he uploads this video, that video that we just heard that clip from, which you can totally listen to the whole thing, and it just kind of goes on like that. He does eventually describe at the end of that and at the end of his written manifesto what he plans to do, which is more extensive than what he ends up doing. So, but he does not kill his brother, for example, and he has all kinds of plans. His original plan is to lure people into his apartment and kill them one by one, but that's not what he ends up doing. He also wants to go to the hottest sorority on campus and murder everybody in the sorority house, and that he actually tries to do. So after he uploads those videos at 9:17 p.m. and the email at 9:18 p.m., he drives to the Alpha Phi sorority house and knocks aggressively on the door for several minutes. But thank God those Alpha Phi sorority girls did not answer the door because they were smart. They were probably like, I don't know if they were not home, but if they saw him and they were just like, that guy looks like a fucking creep, and they didn't answer the door. So good
Smart.
for them.
Yeah.
None of those sorority girls
Don't answer the door.
were murdered. I don't answer the door. And let me just interrupt myself here to say, after he emailed that manifesto to a bunch of people, including his therapist and his parents, they called the police. His parents. They got it. At some point during all this, they got it. They read it. They immediately realized he was planning to do this, and they called the police. And the police knew, and they were looking for him. But it was just, it all happened real fast, I think. It sounds like, it does not sound like a case where the police didn't take anything seriously or screwed up, or that his parents didn't really know what was going on. Although later, friends of his and even his, I think even like family friends said, like, as soon as I heard this on the news, I knew it was him. Just because they'd heard him rant and rant and rant.
Terrible.
So after he tries to get into that sorority house and no one answers, he starts going down the road and he sees 3 Delta sorority sisters standing talking to each other, and he just shoots all of them.
Right.
He kills 2 of them, and the third he just leaves for dead. She survived. She was not, she didn't actually, I don't think she was even in critical condition, thank God. She was, there was like interviews with her. But how fucking traumatic is that? So he shoots those 3 women. Then, the sheriffs are there and they're responding and this is a crisis there. But meanwhile, he gets back in his car and keeps driving, drives down to a coffee shop, shoots at the coffee shop, but nobody's in it. So nobody's killed there. Then he keeps going, goes to this deli, the Isla Vista Deli Mart, and just shoots into the building. Kills a guy in there. Kills some poor student.
20-year-old student.
Yep, kills this poor student in there. A man. Yep, but he doesn't even know who he's shooting at this point. He's just shooting indiscriminately. He's shooting at buildings. He's shooting at people on the street. And he also tries to run over several people on bikes. He's just barreling down the street. He shoots at police officers who are on foot who are responding. I think, yeah, does he? I think he does at one point. Oh wait, maybe that's later on. Sorry. So yeah, he's shooting at people on the street. Luckily he was not a good shot, or he would have killed even more people. He misses a lot of people. He tries to hit a woman. He hits a woman on a bike. He shoots at a couple coming out of a pizzeria. He does. He shoots at the sheriff's deputy who is responding to the 911 call, and he hits 2 pedestrians who are in the street.
Jesus.
Yep. 2 students who were leaving a church. Shoots at them. The only people who died from all this shooting and stabbing were the 3 roommates, the 2 sorority sisters, and the guy in the deli. So he kills 6 people, but he goes on this rampage, just shooting. He shoots 13 people, I think, or 14 people. He wounds 14 people, kills 6. So by this point, he's pursued by police. He strikes another bicyclist in the street, crashes onto a sidewalk at an intersection, and shoots himself in the head. So by the time they catch up to him, he's dead.
God. I mean, that's just terrible.
Yeah. There were 17 crime scenes that had to be investigated. They searched his car and found 3 guns, the 2 knives that were used to kill his roommates and the roommate's friend, 6 empty 10-round magazines, and 548 rounds of unspent ammunition.
Now,
83 spent shell casings were recovered from the crime scenes, and 55 of them were recovered from Elliot Rodger. So he was...
I mean, he
was shooting a lot.
He was treated for bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, Asperger's syndrome, and he was on antipsychotic drugs.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, you said he was considered psychotic. I mean, like, that's
he was being treated, but this was a case where it's like, this is the scariest thing, because they always want to say, were there any signs? Were there any signs? Did anyone know? And they want to blame someone, like his parents should have been paying more attention. Everyone was paying attention. He was being treated. He had a therapist. He always had a therapist.
Perhaps
they always knew he was kind of,
perhaps the attention pushed him because he felt like he was the most important person on the planet, and everybody was paying attention to him.
There's plenty of people who have significant mental illnesses who are treated. Being treated for a mental illness does not push people into murder. Come on.
Well,
that's crazy.
I'm just saying.
That's crazy. By the way, he had, he was being treated for psychosis and all this. He purchased all of his guns legally. He purchased
HIPAA and Obama.
He purchased the 9mm guns legally in 3 different cities.
Yeah, that's not.
He had been planning that crime for a year, and preparing for a year.
Well, it's a pretty poorly planned mass murder.
I guess it's like if you have a friend who's ranting and raving about how he wants to kill every woman and every man that has sex with women, you should do what? Report him to the police? I mean, what do? They were already trying to get him help. His family was always trying to talk him down. They had him in therapy.
I had a reverse guy like that named I went to college with. But he used to go to these things at parties to get drunk. He'd be like, if I ever hear about a woman who's abused by a man, I'm going to go find that man and beat him up. And I'll be the kind of man that woman needs. I'm like, really, Joe? Just like that? You're on a quest to find a woman who's abused by a man so you can step in and become her boyfriend. I mean, but it was like, that was his plan on getting with a woman. Yeah. Was he would take the place of the abuser.
So he'd seen too many movies where some guy steps in and rescues the princess and then is rewarded by,
It was roughly based on Mario Brothers, his whole philosophy.
Yeah, that basically... that sounds like it.
If I see a turtle kidnap a woman, I will stomp that turtle.
I will jump on a bunch of mushrooms and I will rescue her.
I will throw fire from my hands. What the fuck is that game even about?
I have no idea.
Anyways.
So Elliot Rodger's parents, they got that manifesto. The therapist calls his mother and father check his YouTube channel, watch his video. The mother calls the father. They all start driving up to Isla Vista. During the drive, mom calls the police. They arrange to meet the parents when they get there, but then they hear the news, they hear the radio report of a shooting. But in the video, he said it was going to be the next day. So they thought, okay, well, maybe it's not him. Maybe it's just unrelated. But by the time they got to Isla Vista, they found out that, in fact, it was Elliot. He'd killed 6 people, and he'd killed himself. So those parents, bless their hearts. Like, this is one case where I feel like it's hard to blame his parents. And there's interviews with his dad. I mean, I don't know. Who knows what went on? Maybe he was ignored, whatever. But it sounds like they knew he had a lot of problems, and they really tried to help him. I don't know. I really don't know what the answer is here.
The answer is, ladies, if you see a guy that looks like he needs a blowjob, blow him.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Oh, come on. All it would take him was one little...
You know what? Yeah, and that's the kind of attitude that spurs these guys on. Because, no, the answer is, number 1, you're not going to die from lack of sex. You're only 22.
No,
there's lots of
6 people died from his lack of sex.
There's a lot of virgins who are 22. You're not that old. And you have to... Here's the big key thing. You got to actually talk to people in order to have relationships with them, even, if those relationships are just a one-night stand. I mean, it's not gonna happen if you don't ever make any attempts. Because you have to treat people like people.
Okay, well, let me phrase. Get your sons laid, dads.
It's kind of like he saw the whole world like a video game. Like, if I press this button and do this and this and this, then this will happen. This is the next level. The next level says I should be having sex, and he wasn't.
It's Warcraft, man. It's Warcraft. Chinatown, baby.
Anyways, the victims' families, were frustrated by the police not taking preventative action. But I mean, honest to God, I don't feel like they had a lot of time. The timeline's pretty tight here. By the time the police knew about him, they were looking for him, but he'd already started.
The frustration here, I mean, this is a person here who randomly shot people on the street with guns that he illegally obtained. he was mentally ill, but there's nothing that stops mentally ill people from having guns.
This is a true tragedy because, yeah, he was mentally ill, but he was being treated and he was being followed by, a medical professional. He was medicated, and it just got away from him. But
so
I don't know.
The ways to avoid it: stay inside. If you're walking outside, always have somebody on your left if you're facing the street, so they can absorb the bullets from a crazy shooter. The sorority girls didn't answer the door, probably because they're having sex with bad dudes. That's a good thing to do. But
don't answer your door. But really, it's creepy because I don't know what you could do with this guy. But I do think that probably, like, in his mind, which was warped, the ideas, that men, if you're the good-looking, manly man, you're going to get women, that warped his thinking, and he felt like he was somehow, that those women were mistreating him because he wasn't getting them. And he just didn't, he was, like, viewing them as currency. I don't know.
Maybe we should start, like, a GoFundMe page for World of Warcraft players.
No. I have no sympathy for any World of Warcraft players who are not getting laid. You gotta turn your computer off. You have to go outside of your bedroom. You not go down to the arcade down the street. Not to Jimmy John's. You got to go somewhere where there's actual other people that you can talk to.
There's women at Jimmy John's. There's women at Jimmy John's.
No, but I'm saying, like, you got to leave your house. You have to get out there. You can't just play World of Warcraft all the time.
You left their house.
Expect to meet women.
Did you go to Jimmy John's? Jared.
Oh. Well, that's a whole other
That's what
story,
you want? You want people to be pedophiles now, Laura?
Oh, my God.
You know what? I'm just saying, maybe if you were nicer to people, this wouldn't have happened. Maybe there's, maybe you could have been a little considerate.
So, about the friend zone. I mean,
the friend zone.
People like to talk about the friend zone.
They do.
But do you think the friend zone is kind of like a dangerous concept that can drive guys who are already pretty unstable to feel like they've been friend zoned?
I've seen people talk about the friend zone in a way that's borderline psychotic, and the phrase I think is taking a different meaning right now. Where back in my day, the friend zone basically meant this girl won't bang me, and that sucks. But I'll probably need another girl that'll bang me, and that'll be kind of cool. But now it's become that's the normal friend zone thing, where it's like it's a way of saying, yeah, she doesn't want to bang me. But there's the new meaning where basically it's like I've earned that pussy.
Exactly.
I've earned that pussy. I have equity in it, and I can't believe she's not fucking me right now. I mean, I helped her move her stuff.
Exactly.
I listened to her talk about her ex-boyfriend. Yeah. At some point you just gotta move on. And I don't know. My name is Dave, so my life's a little bit different than other people. I mean, there's a Dave zone, which all guys named Dave have, where people just tend to like us. And some nights we get laid, other nights we watch Jurassic Park, but it's pretty good to be named Dave.
It's true.
True. And there's been plenty of girls I've liked over the years where like it wasn't given back, but at the same time, other things are happening too. I mean, I don't know. I've never felt that I've been entitled to get laid. Like I said, every time I get laid, it's like a complete surprise to me, even from you. I'm like, wow, hey. We're still doing that,
and I feel like the guys who bitch about being there. It's like the thing is, to them everything is a means to an end. There's no value in being friends with women. Apparently, it's all just a means to the ultimate. Goal is just having sex with these women. They're not in it for any kind of friendship. So, unlike you're saying, the friend zone would be like, well, I guess we're friends, and I wish we were having sex, but we're not. I guess we're just gonna be friends. But these guys are like, I will pretend to be this woman's friend and help her with things because I expect that if I do these things, she'll have sex with me. And then when that doesn't happen, then they're completely outraged.
Well,
that's just
they were doing it all wrong.
They're seeing women as like
you should always be friends with women that are friends with other women. You got to avoid being friends with women that have no friends. That's where you get into a rut. If you're friends with a woman, at some point you're going to have sex with one of her friends.
I don't feel like you're helping any of this.
Am I
feel like these
wrong?
guys, I feel like there's a big, and I could go on and on about this, but I won't.
How do we make?
But I feel like there's a big cultural kind of like viewing women as a commodity, and that's these guys are seeing women as like a thing to earn.
No, they are. That's what I'm saying.
Not as other people. They see them as a thing to earn.
You shouldn't see them as things. You should see them as being mentally unstable enough where if you're good enough friends with a woman, at some point, one of her friends will sleep with you either out of spite because they don't like that woman, or just to be contrary. It'll happen.
No, I think
it has happened to me.
Here's the thing.
Enough that
if you're just friends with enough people and you just talk to enough people, eventually one of them will have sex with you. I think that is a statement I can agree with. But if you just see everybody people as a commodity to earn, people are not a commodity to earn. This is not. Come on. I mean, that they're treating them as if like I'm going to exchange these goods of helping you move and hanging out with you and eating pizza with you on a Friday night. Those are the goods that I will exchange for sex from you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they're really trying to buy these women's affections through acting like they're friends. It's creepy, man. It's creepy. I hate it when you read like these Reddit threads and stuff. These guys are just like outraged because some neighbor woman and they helped her move some boxes and then they ask her for a blowjob and she doesn't give it to them. And
ask for a blowjob.
There have been other. Yeah, don't ask for a blowjob, guys. That's got to just happen on its own. There have been other, like there was one, which I didn't write down any of the details of this. Some guy who killed a high school girl friend of his because she said no when he asked her to the prom.
No, I looked at that one. I thought it'd be.
Christ.
I couldn't do well on that one. I actually looked at that one. I thought about doing it, but like, yeah, it's pretty much what you just said.
I know, it's so sad. I mean,
he killed her in school too.
In school?
Stabbed her, I believe.
Jesus.
Yeah. In his defense, she didn't go to prom with him, though.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine, though? I mean, it's just
so
terrifying.
glad I'm not a woman. I'm so...
It's scary. And like, you know, you want to, like, tell women, like, you know, you got to, like, young women, you should never feel like you have to go out with someone just to be nice to them or whatever. And you shouldn't. And then there are all these scary guys out there who feel like you should. And then they're going to stab you if you say no to them.
Like every woman should learn how to use a firearm, should take self-defense.
Every woman should take jujitsu.
No, jujitsu is like for stupid hipsters. You should learn how to use a firearm. You should
the
carry
5-finger death punch, maybe.
That's not a real thing. Get a keychain where you can stab
somebody. You can't
somebody.
just carry a gun around. That poor girl was stabbed in school. Which she was going to like pull a gun out and shoot him? No, I mean, that's not a practical answer. I don't know. I guess you got to be really on your guard and don't be alone with people that you don't know that well. I don't know. You got to go for
just never reject a guy.
Gosh,
you know, problem solved.
Oh, God damn it.
I know. I think the lesson for guys here is that no woman's worth dying. If you really hate women that much, why ruin your life over one? That's the thing. Therein lies the true paradox in misogyny killings. Like, you hate women, but you're going to ruin your life over some woman.
It's really, yeah.
I mean, true misogyny is just not caring. That's the opposite of hate, indifference. Yeah. And I don't know.
That's not true, I don't think true misogyny is not caring. I think true misogyny is deep-seated hate.
Yeah,
women.
that's
true misogyny.
That's a much true.
And I would say that Elliot Rodger was truly
nonsense.
a misogynist. He was truly a misogynist. He really hated women. But he hated men, too.
Oh, I disagree.
He hated men also.
He was not a misogynist based on what I was looking at.
He hated women.
He hated that women didn't love him, which is different than hating women.
He hated women. He said it over and over and over and over and over. Who read the 140-page manifesto?
He did
Not
say
you.
He didn't know women well enough to hate them. The people that truly hate women are men that have been with women and can't stand them and resent them.
Okay, well, that's very philosophical. He didn't know them well enough to hate them, but he saw himself as someone who hated them. It's like if you... Do you hate Nazis? I do.
Really.
Do you know any?
I don't hate anyone.
Oh, come on. Do you hate serial killers?
No.
God damn it. Do you dislike... You are full of shit. I've heard you say you hate people before.
Oh, I do hate people. I can give you names.
Yeah.
I have a list of people
and I bet you don't know those people all that well.
I know them well enough.
You don't know the inner workings of those people.
Yeah, I have enough hate that it's mostly focused on very specific individuals.
You know what? Do not murder any of those people.
I told you I wouldn't murder them. No, I don't really hate things that I don't have personal experience with. Like, yeah, I don't. I'm not a hate monger. I'm not a hateful person. But like, do I waste energy hating the Ku Klux Klan? No. I mean, if I ever saw somebody in the Klan, I'd be like, hey, uncool. Don't burn that cross. But I'm not losing sleep and making plans to murder people.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's a bad example because that's not directly affecting you. This is a guy who felt like women were directly affecting his life and making his life bad. So he did hate them. You know, if you felt like, if you felt that some group of people were tormenting you and making your life terrible, then you would hate them. He absolutely hated him. He was absolutely a misogynist. Elliot Rodger was absolutely a misogynist.
Yes, he was.
Yep. And
Asian.
Half Asian, yeah, he was.
Asians do a lot of spree killings.
You know what? Out of a sample of whatever, so
Two that I
what?
can think
Him and the Virginia Tech guy. Yeah, God, I hate spree killers. They're always just insufferable. Like these manifestos and videos and like writings. It's just they're so full of themselves. They're just such narcissists. You just want to smack them and just be like, "Lighten up, Francis."
And on that note, we are probably going to sign off tonight. We hope you like this episode. Our next series of episodes, we're going to focus on the 90s and some events that happened in the 90s. We're going to look at the...
well, let's not give it away.
We're not going to give it away, but it's going to be a 90s retrospective.
So you'll either be able to reminisce and it'll be nostalgia for you, or you won't know about any of all because you're so young, because we're so old now. The 90s feel like they were just here, but they were really 20 years ago.
And for you doing math, Jurassic Park came out when I was in high school, not college. So I know I'm kind of... wasn't like I was watching Jurassic Park. Just saying.
Yeah, we still watch Jurassic Park a lot.
It's great. It's a great movie.
It is.
I like all of them. All right, so let's go. Have a good night.
Good night.
Or good day. It's a podcast, so whenever the fuck you're listening to it. We appreciate the subscriptions, the downloads, the nice comments. And thank you again. Oh, and by the way, if you're still listening, I was on another podcast for a long time called No Deodorant in Outer Space.
Thank you once again for
Ryan
listening
O'Reilly
to How to
and
Avoid
Rick
Murder
Mel and Jim
and
Rout.
Other Awkward Situations.
And
if you're listening to this,
just want to
that
give a
means you
shout
haven't
out
been murdered.
to
We've done
those
our job.
folks, and maybe they'll
Make
come
sure
on
you
the show
check
at
us
some
out on
point. But if you
Facebook
want to listen
at
to a
How to
hilarious
Avoid Murder,
podcast,
or online
don't listen to that
on the
one.
World Wide
It's
Web
really,
at
it's only hilarious in the
avoidmurder.com.
sense that it's
Until next
complete
time,
dysfunction for
stay
3
safe.
years, and then we stopped doing it. And
Good times.
good times. But Ryan O'Reilly is a good guy, and you should check him out online and his writings and things like that. And this guy named Dole, he is the worst. But he's a real nice guy, too. And he's good friends with Ryan, and he held up the show. But he's in a band called I Decline. So that's my plug from two of my friends, I Decline, and the writer, Ryan Sean O'Reilly. He writes stuff. And I'll probably put a link on our Facebook page at some point to one of his books that's not terrible. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Stay safe.